Hello and welcome to VeritasPopuli. I'm the producer of the show and the host, Dan Meredith, and today we're excited to welcome a great guest with us. We have Robert Kuykenadall, who represents 2ndVote, or 2ndvote.com. Welcome.
Thank you, Dan. Great to be here.
Thanks for being with us. 2ndVote is, tell us a little bit about 2ndVote. It's a web page and also an organization. Tell us a little bit about it.
Right. It's a website and an app and an organization. We sometimes call it a movement of conservatives who want to pay attention to what their dollar funds after they've spent it. We look at corporations and we consider ourselves a bit of a watchdog, and we've followed the money when the corporation spends it on advocacy or gives it to a nonprofit that engages in advocacy, to be able to show conservatives what their dollar is actually funding, because a corporation doesn't have any money to engage in advocacy unless the shopper, the consumer, and conservative consumers are included in that, give them the money first.
Okay, so if I go to a company, Acme company, just to use the Roadrunner company there, and I go to that company and I buy their product and I give them dollars, and then if they decide for some reason, now all corporations don't donate, but if they choose to donate to some kind of fund somewhere or a charity, they choose what charity they donate to, but I as a customer don't know that, or in the past don't know that. But I can go to your app and find out if it is in line with what I would like them to.
Right, and a lot of information is public, and we have so many resources with the internet and being able to see when a corporation says, well, we support this policy, or we get involved with this charity, but 2ndVote wanted to aggregate all that information to be a resource and be a tool for people to use. They can go to our website at 2ndvote.com and look up over 1,000 different companies and find out what kind of positions they've taken on the issues of life, marriage, the environment, Second Amendment, religious liberty, immigration, and education are all in there, and see if a company has funded an advocacy organization that promotes policy on that issues, or if the company itself has said we support this position or that position, and give them the tool to be able to say, I don't think I would normally support that policy with my first vote at the ballot box, but I'm funding it every day when I go buy soap or go buy a car or use an internet service or cell phone provider. A portion of my dollar is funding issue advocacy that I might not normally agree with.
Okay. Now, first, let's get this out of the way, first of all, so everybody will understand where we're coming from. I'm a conservative. I'm a Christian. I'm a constitutionalist. And Robert is conservative, Christian. But we don't believe we have a right to demand that any corporation out there be conservative, be Christian, or do anything that we tell them to do. All we're saying is that we want, and what you all are doing is just giving information to people.
Right.
So that way I can spend my money where I want to, and they can spend their money where they want to. That's basically the stand you're taking.
Right, and the companies can make their own decisions.
Right.
But as personally, and I think a lot of conservatives would want to say, we'd rather do business at a company that is at least neutral, that we could feel comfortable shopping there because our dollars aren't funding some sort of agenda we don't agree with down the road. So we want to give people the tool to be able to make that decision on their own, but also be able to talk with companies and say, I'm a consumer, I'm a customer of yours that doesn't agree with some of these policies you've taken, and this is why, and this is actually, I've got a resource here called 2ndVote that's telling me about this, and the company can look at that and say, you know what, maybe we didn't see that that's an advocacy. Charity has become such a major industry where organizations exist sometimes just in perpetuity, and we've lost a little bit of why a charity exists. So sometimes corporations may just get into the game and say, well, we always fund this group because it's been one of our sponsorships, without really paying attention to the fact that that organization might fund political advocacy. For example, United Way, 6% of United Way chapters fund Planned Parenthood.
A lot of people don't realize that. United Way is looked at as pretty much a benign group that you give your money at work to United Way, and we're not dissing, I guess the word is, United Way, just these are facts.
Right.
A lot of people give money and don't realize that they give it to a lot of people, and all United Way organizations aren't associated with Planned Parenthood. But some are.
No, they're
so
not.
You need to investigate.
And we had heard people talk about this very fact. And so we put together a resource for individuals to go onto our website and look up the United Way. And actually every chapter of the United Way is listed on 2ndVote's website. You could click on their tax forms and say, that company, that United Way chapter does not fund Planned Parenthood. I feel comfortable, if I'm a pro-lifer, giving them my donation, whether it's through a workplace giving campaign or otherwise. But we can also give you the tool to talk with that chapter and say, hey, we don't think this is what the United Way should be doing. But that's what 2ndVote exists for, is to provide the resource.
So you're not saying don't give to your United Way. You're saying here are some tools, some resources, so you can find out where your money is going.
That's exactly right.
You know, you wouldn't want to give to a group that's sending money to ISIS. So you wouldn't want to give to a group that's giving money to a group that you don't support. So what you do is you give people tools so that they can look and see where their money's going. And that's all you're saying.
And that situation, that's what I'm saying, that situation exists on all the issues, or the issues that are in 2ndVote's database. And that's why we separate them. Instead of going and saying, well, this company's just liberal or this company's conservative, let's break it out to the issues that matter, whether it's the life issue, whether it's the Second Amendment, whether it's environmental issues. The main thing that we look at is how the consumer dollar goes through a corporation and is connected to political advocacy, whether it leans to the left, whether it leans to the right, or where we like to see it neutral.
Okay. Now, your grading goes from 1 to 5.
That's correct.
Ideally, it would be nice to be a 5, because that means you're perfect in every way.
Well, for a conservative, yes. A conservative
a 3 is not bad.
Right. A 3 is great.
Yeah,
because we say that we are a resource for conservatives. Anyone can use our information, and what 2ndVote has taken great pains to do is provide links to the citation where you can say, hey, that is why 2ndVote says this company has taken a position, whether it's a newspaper article, whether it's a tax filing. You can go on our website, search through the companies, and click on the link and say, that's why that company leans to the left, leans to the right, or is neutral on that issue. So we give that to the consumer to be able to go into the issue that they care about and make the decision for themselves, whether that's something they wouldn't agree with, or maybe that's not a big deal to them. But it's a resource to be able to show where the company stands on that issue.
So your areas that you grade in are Second Amendment, family,
marriage, the marriage issue, life, the environmental issues, immigration. We also have religious liberty, and we also have education, where we talk about Common Core and school choice.
So if someone were really high on education but didn't care about gun rights, if that's you, we need to have a talk. But if that's you, then you can look at the company and see that if they score high in one area but not in and the area that doesn't matter to you, that's okay.
Yeah,
so you can go and see that.
You can go separate it out to see. The idea is to give a big picture of where a company is, but we also want to really focus on the actual advocacy and be able to say, from a position of authority, this is why a company, this is what a company does, and give that information to the consumer to be able to make their own decisions.
Okay. Let me, I've got some papers here. Yeah. First of all, if someone that's viewing wants to go to 2ndvote.com, that's 2ND, not written out, but 2ndvote.com. You go to the webpage. It's like a news feed that's got a lot of news on there. We might get time to look at that. But then there's one that says this week's scores at a glance. Then if you go there, you can go to different companies. And I just printed off. There's one company here, a bank, Bank of America, and then it goes through pages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages on paper where you can scroll down through, and for example, when it says Second Amendment, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 different references on the Second Amendment. So this is not just you all saying, I don't like them, they hate guns. This is you going through with links where there are primary sources that you can go and read. Now, it might not be where Bank of America said, we don't like guns.
Right.
It's where they have either a policy or they have donated or they have made a statement, but where people can, today we hear a lot about false news, fake news. Right. Your site is not a fake news site.
Right.
You just write.
We're an information source. We're a resource, and we say we're educational. But yes, the idea is that we give the resource to the consumers that they can go and look at Bank of America and say, well, why is Bank of America take a more liberal position on the Second Amendment, on Second Amendment issues? When it comes to Second Amendment, there's various organizations that have taken positions that don't mesh with what we see as what the Second Amendment protects. And for example, the National Urban League does a lot of good work in a lot of areas around the country, but they have take a very specific position that says we are against stand your ground laws, which for a conservative would say, well, stand your ground laws embody what the Second Amendment, part of what the Second Amendment is meant for. So the National Urban League has taken a liberal position on stand your ground laws, therefore a liberal position on the Second Amendment. When they get money from someone like Bank of America is funding that advocacy, and they do it with their customers, the people who bank with Bank of America, they do it with their dollars.
Okay. And this is again where someone can look at that and say, oh, I see your reasoning here. Bank of America funds them, this is where they stand, and that doesn't make a difference to me.
Right.
And then you can move on.
Right.
So you're not just saying this is bad and we've decided for you. You're all about information, and here's where you can make your decision.
We want to give the information.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, we want to give the total picture information to the consumers, because some companies might go out and say, well, we're asking you not to bring your firearms to our store. And a lot of conservatives may say, well, we believe in the right to conceal and carry. Some would even say we believe in the right to open carry, but we also believe in the right of private property, that the business owner can make the decisions. It comes down to a personal philosophy on where the business owner's rights end and my personal rights begin. But it gives you the opportunity to look and say, well, I don't consider that to be a deal breaker position on the Second Amendment versus someone who might fund a member of the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence, which started as very specifically as a handgun control organization that has taken some very liberal positions on Second Amendment issues. So it's for our members, for our readers to be able to decide what that means to them.
Right, huge difference. I noticed here on your webpage, this was something to be useful. Now, this show is going to air probably in February, I don't know. We're taping in advance, but they're a little bit late, but there's a Christmas shopping guide.
Right.
You need to put one out for Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
For those of you that want to buy a Groundhog's Day gift. But this gives a list of companies and how they rank, so that way if you're going to go buy something, then, Hobby Lobby's got a number 5, so you can go there and feel like they're on the right on everything. And then it's got companies here that are listed that's on your Christmas guide that are 3s and above, so you can feel comfortable going there.
And Dan, to your point, when the show does air after New Year's, this guide will still exist as an overall shopping guide. We wanted people to be paying attention that this was for Christmas shopping, but it's an everyday shopping guide. That's why we have retailers. That's why we have food and beverage, restaurant category. That's why we have electronics. These are some companies that have really, for the most part, not taken any position on the issues. And you're not a conservative can know their dollars won't be funding any liberal advocacy when they do business at a list of these companies. You have Bed Bath & Beyond, you have Radio Shack, you have Dillard's, all these companies that have basically remained neutral on most policy issues.
Yeah, I was really surprised as we were preparing for this. I looked up sporting goods, and let me open this up. This is the app as opposed to the web page, but if you look on your phone and look on the app, if you look at, it was sporting goods here, very easy to use, download it, Sporting Goods, and Bass Pro Shops had a 3.3, so they tilt toward the conservative side. Duck Commander was a 3.2, lower than Bass Pro Shops. And I thought, what are the Robertsons doing? But then when you click on it, basically the reason is Second Amendment they got a 4, and then the rest they got a 3, which basically is okay.
Yeah,
they just hadn't made a statement on it.
And it's great. And there's not a perfect scoring system, but we think this best shows how consumers can view a company. When we say 3 and above is neutral or conservative, it gives conservatives a bigger range instead of say, well, I'm only going to do business with far right-wing companies. We don't want that kind of mentality. We want a company individually. I want a company to be neutral, and just to not have to take any position that I have to be concerned with, and wonder, what does my dollar really represent when I do business here?
I think that's something that we were talking as we prepared for the show. If someone's selling soap, our view is they need to be concerned with selling soap. Right. They don't need to be concerned with making me happy. They don't need to have signs up in the store that we sell soap and we love guns, any more than we sell soap and leave your gun at home. They need to be selling soap, and I'm happy, and you're happy.
Right.
The left seems to be wanting all companies to be saying, we sell soap and we love transgendered people. We would just want them to sell soap.
Right, and it's not even about transgender people or the LGBT. It's where the company says, well, our outreach towards the LGBT community has something to do with helping maybe push some of their political agenda. And that's where we're most concerned, is that our dollars could end up funding various advocacy because, say, Target has been in the news over the past year because they say, well, we want everyone to come into our bathrooms based on their identity, not biological sex. And so some people said, well, I have a few safety concerns, because that's such a vague definition of how you let someone come into a restroom or a fitting room. And it was part of a larger movement, is what we were able to find at 2ndVote.
There was something behind
There's
that.
something behind it. It came in response to North Carolina's House Bill 2, HB 2, where North Carolina is saying, hey, we have to have common sense reforms to what the city of Charlotte's trying to do to force these accommodation laws that no one really understands, and there are the legitimate safety concerns. There's also religious liberty concerns for business owners who say, well, I run my business in a way that reflects my faith, but also protects my customers. And so Target signaled where they stood on that issue by saying, well, we're just going to let all comers come into our fitting rooms and restrooms based on whatever they feel like, rather than biological sex. So that's, when you look at the bigger picture, Target's also one of the top funders of a group called the Human Rights Campaign. Now, the Human Rights Campaign was probably the most prominent organization funding and pushing the legal and political efforts to overturn state definitions of marriage, laws that define marriage as between one man and one woman. Eventually culminated in the Obergefell ruling last year by the Supreme Court, that basically struck down state laws defining marriage as between one man and one woman. HRC and their allies in the LGBT movement have moved on to these accommodation laws, which bring up serious concerns for those who think that they should be able to run their business according to their religious beliefs. And then it gets involved in how religious institutions actually run their organizations, where we say we have a standard for basic moral behavior by our employers or by people who use our facilities. Well, these laws are now being written so vaguely that it takes away the ability of a church or just a business owner to make that decision, or a school
in a church building.
That's exactly right.
So there's always something next. They never stop, and it's always moving, moving further. You know, you mentioned the Target. You all don't get into boycotts per se, but there was something different about the Target, and then you did move into something similar to that with a Anywhere But Target. And I noticed on your webpage it talked about that. You had a Anywhere But Target sort of a web page movement, but then the liberals, progressives who claim they're all about openness and tolerance and free speech, your web page was shut down.
Right. You know, like we were saying, after the marriage ruling by the Supreme Court, we saw this pivot to these accommodation laws, and Target as a corporation really stood out as having taken a position on these new issues. And so we launched an Anywhere But Target movement. It was a hashtag campaign designed to engage conservatives on social media, Twitter and Facebook, to be able to show that, hey, there's a significant group of people that are concerned about Target's policy, and they don't want their dollars funding Target's position, and we wanted to facilitate them to be able to say that. We're shopping anywhere but Target this Christmas. They're going to use a hashtag and help it spread on social media. And it actually launched to incredible success, we felt. It was just within 24 hours, our analytics showed over 3 million people had already been reached by the campaign, and it started growing. And on Thanksgiving Day, the hosting company who hosted the webpage, anywherebuttarget.com, shut it down, saying, well, this is bigoted and hateful, and we're just going to shut it down on Thanksgiving Day. And we scrambled for about 24 hours to get the campaign back up and going, because we weren't going to be shut down just because a business like all these other businesses that are involved with this so-called LGBT agenda have been trying to kind of silence conservatives or silence people of faith who say, I'm not on board with the positions you're taking, and the left tries to slam it as being hateful, bigoted, insensitive, when it's not. There are very deep safety concerns, but there's also deeply held religious beliefs that say we expect to hold our communities, our families, our businesses to a certain standard. And so when we saw this company trying to shut down our webpage, we said, this is the exact same thing as these individuals and organizations that are trying to find these cake bakers out in Oregon. They're trying to take a florist company away because she says, you know, I'm not going to participate in a same-sex wedding because I'm not going to affirm that, because my Christian faith says that's not marriage, and that's why I'm not participating. It has nothing to do with hating anyone or discrimination. It says I'm not going to affirm what I don't believe in, and that's the very basis of the First Amendment for us.
Sure.
So the campaign was shut down temporarily, but of course we weren't going to stop that. The website's back up, and we also encourage people to go look at our website at anywherebuttarget.com, because this is a tool to continually engage Target on their policies and to show other companies who are saying, well, are we going to implement the same policies or engage in the same type of advocacy? We want to show them that there are a significant amount of people that say, hey, we're not on board, we don't agree with it.
We've got about 4 minutes left. Something positive here. I know you all don't necessarily want people to just change and just become conservative overnight, but you did have some success with Macy's, I think?
Right. Just a few weeks ago, we were able to confirm that Macy's is no longer has a financial relationship, no longer funding, no longer matching charitable contributions by its employees to Planned Parenthood.
So Macy's didn't have some in-bed relationship with Planned Parenthood, but they were matching.
Macy's itself was matching contributions made by employees to Planned Parenthood. A lot of companies have programs like this. And we released a pretty comprehensive list in the middle of 2015 that said, here are 41 companies that we have been able to draw a direct financial relationship between these companies and Planned Parenthood. And we sent out letters to these companies saying, can you explain this to us? Is our information accurate? Every company in our database, we send a letter to their C-level and say, this is what we found, this is how we've scored your company, whether it's liberal or conservative. And Macy's had never said anything. Well, these other companies, when these videos come out showing Planned Parenthood employees appearing to negotiate the sale of body parts for profit, AT&T, Ford, Xerox and Coca-Cola all said, well, wait, Planned Parenthood's lying. We don't have any of these programs. We've been listed on their website, but we don't have a relationship with Planned Parenthood. We don't match gifts. We don't fund Planned Parenthood. Macy's came out a few weeks ago and said the same exact thing. We don't have a financial relationship with Planned Parenthood. We did in the past, and we have been able to confirm that in the past Macy's did. They stopped that because customers were reaching out and say, we don't want to do business with a company that funds Planned Parenthood with our dollars.
Well, that's great. So that's a positive thing. And that's, again, you all weren't demanding that they, you know, start, you know, all their employees start toting guns or anything like that. You didn't want them to become a number 5. Just some reasonable, rational customers saying, we would like this, and they responded. So that's a great thing. We've got about a minute left. What does the future look like for you all, very quickly?
Well, the future is to continue growing. You know, we're only 3 years old. We have over 180,000 members around the country who we engage with on a regular basis, and we want to continue to talk with those conservatives, talk with the people who care about what their dollars go to fund, because people say, well, why do all these companies seem so liberal? I personally think it's because conservatives haven't really engaged with companies like liberals do, and they need to learn how to do that. The liberals and the left have done such an effective job of getting involved with educational institutions, with the media. We forget that they also do a very good job of organizing within the corporate world. And we want conservatives to continue to engage and learn how to take these victories where we're winning, and Macy's is saying we're not supporting Planned Parenthood anymore, and keep going. And we want to continue that kind of work.
That's great. We appreciate your fine work with 2ndVote. Thank you all for tuning in tonight with Robert Kuykenadall, the representative of 2ndVote. Go to their webpage, support them, and thank you for listening once again to Veritas Populi.